The date is Friday, April 29th, and you're listening to Entertain This, a thought-provoking podcast encapsulating all things entertainment. On this special 5th Friday of the month, we brought on our fact-checker to fill the gap and bring us another stellar episode. And today we're talking about a film director by the name of Wes Anderson. He's directed movies like The Grand Budapest Hotel and The Fantastic Mr. Fox, among many, many more. So listen in and enjoy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite show on the internet encapsulating all things entertainment. It's Entertain This.
Entertain This.
As always, I'm Alex.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Nick.
And this is also the only show on the internet that takes 40 minutes to start. That's right, we are 40 minutes late on recording this episode because we were too busy gabbing like a bunch of people who gab and are not gender specific.
We call them Gabbies.
Yeah, we're just a bunch of gibby gabbies over here talking about we just missed each other so much, so we just had to gab and gab and gab.
It's been a while.
And make fart jokes and poop jokes and pee jokes and
everything in between.
Yeah.
Everything in between. Guys, it is such a strange feeling being in a week such as this. Of course, I'm referring to a 5th week of a month. As we are classically trained in elementary school, there are usually 4 weeks in a month. 4 weeks make up 1 month. They don't tell you about the mystical, magical 5th week that sometimes happens in a month. Or more importantly, the 5th Friday, which is to say if the month starts on a Friday, sometimes you get a little 5th Friday sneaking in on you. So for a show that releases every Friday, it becomes difficult to keep track of your 4 week setup where it's a host of the show, guest of the show. And sometimes we gotta call in a little help. Now, some of you are well aware that it takes more than 3 to steer this ship. Ye old Entertain This Pearl.
I'd argue that the 3 of us make things worse.
I would say it's harder, especially if today's episode and beginning today's episode was an indicative survey of how running this show goes. I feel bad for our 4th member and arguably the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
Because she had to start and stop about 100 times before we finally just said go live, and then Nick said fart and piss on air. So
Did not.
well, you did in
Roll
the
it
live
back.
version, but I will edit it out. Without further ado, you guys know her, you love her, and she comes on to tell us when we're wrong. It's Chloe Price.
Hey!
Yay, Chloe!
It's
Woo!
me.
Now,
Your
Chloe,
girl. What's up?
I've been watching a lot of a trial that I'm not going to mention because I feel like it's in bad taste.
Names redacted.
Exactly. So I'm going to ask this question in the form that they would there because that's what my brain wants to do.
Okay.
But please provide if this is correct or not. When we contractually hired you to be our fact checker and offered you no pay, our bit of compensation that we did offer was disclosed as every extra Friday you would get to host. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. There is no written contract, first of all.
No.
And second of all, even if there was, I'm not sure that it would specifically say that. If there happens to be a 5th week where no one else is available, you guys throw me a pity episode and I try to
I don't think it's a
deliver.
pity
It's not-
episode.
Pity episode.
It's like we offer it to you and you have first grabs. We're like, hey, do you want this episode? And at any point you could tell us no and we'd have to do something else.
But I
we
am
do
an
offer it to you
endless
first.
fount of entertainment knowledge. So,
Which
why
is-
not lend my
It's
skills?
very
Isn't
useful.
it just a metaphor to society that us 3 men spout garbage about how hard it is to come up with a topic every week? Meanwhile, in the background, there's a woman who is just bursting with ideas for topics, and we have just completely hushed her out, and we let her out of her box every once in a while.
Nah,
to
this
do
is
an
your
episode.
show. I'm just visiting.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, you're
thanks
a
for coming.
you're a permanent fixture, but you are visiting verbally for sure.
Pinch hitter. Baseball.
I'm gonna stop talking and let you take over now. It is your episode, so have at it.
Thanks. And once again, it's nice to be here with my boys. Today, I'm going to be talking about a certain film director. I think that certain movies can cast a spell over us and kind of take us to a different world. The characters seem like people we already know, or the colors of the scenery are super enchanting. Maybe a family's house feels like your own, or
I
your
already
thoughts.
know who you're talking about. You talk about Quentin Tarantino.
Oh no.
Written Directino.
We love that weirdo foot guy.
Yeah, I like some of his movies, but as a person, I probably wouldn't do a whole podcast about him.
No, he looks weird too. Continue.
He's a weird looking guy.
It's
So
like
you're
Casey
watching a
Neistat.
movie and you love it and it sticks with you and it begs to be rewatched when you need some kind of comfort. And I think personally that Wes Anderson is one of the greatest movie directors
Ooh.
working today. And each one of his films somehow provides this unique experience of making you feel seen and heard and entertained.
If his movies didn't entertain me, I think that he'd be a pretty shit director, but feeling heard for sure.
Well,
Can you
I
give
have
me
a
some
quote
Examples?
that I'm going to run, but of course I will give you some examples. But first, I
Was
want to
that
share
Tweak
this.
another kitty opening your door?
It was Victor leaving this time.
Oh,
He's had
okay.
enough of me.
I love
Victor
animals
has
that
left
can
the
do
chat.
human things.
Like open doors.
Yeah.
Do y'all mind? Anyway, okay, so this quote, I'm going to read it first and then I'm going to tell you who said it.
Mhm.
Wes Anderson has a very special kind of talent. He knows how to convey the simple joys and interactions between people so well and with such richness. This kind of sensibility is rare in movies.
Can we
And the
take a
man-
guess?
Well, sure.
Let's
Who's
all get
gonna
one
say?
in.
Yeah,
I'm
everybody
gonna
give me a
say
guess.
Owen Wilson.
Okay. We'll get back to him.
Oh shoot, what's the Bill Murray?
We'll also get back to him.
Oh, that's a good guess.
I don't know. I can't correlate Wes Anderson with any of his movies, so forgive me. I'm just
Can
going
I
to say
take?
Jim
Oh,
Carrey.
okay, fine. Can I have one more?
I don't know.
Give me
I just want one more guess.
one more.
I don't remember his name.
It's not who
Clooney.
you
George
think.
Clooney.
George Clooners?
It is Martin Scorsese, director of Taxi Driver,
Oh.
Goodfellas, Casino, The Departed.
That's fucking wild because
Some of the
all
hardest movies.
all of those movies are the exact fucking opposite of
Yeah,
what.
and he was like,
Mhm.
I just love his style. Like, this guy can appeal to anybody.
That reminds me of that picture where it's like the happiest of Japanese artists make the darkest of art, and then the
Yeah.
saddest of Japanese artists make the like most weeaboo of art.
Interesting.
Well, today I'm going to be talking about Wes Anderson and his book of films. And hopefully by the end, I will implore at least you, Nick, to watch one of them.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
sure
seen
I
most of them. Being that
Same.
I've dated Chloe for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
I have not been
He's
dating
my
Chloe,
fave.
but I have also seen most of them.
Yeah, but you are a little cutesy pants. You just
Shut
love it.
up!
He liked the cute stuff. It's not
I
his
do.
fault.
It's not. I like it.
All right. So Wesley Wales Anderson. What a
Wales?
name, right? Wales.
Where's
Spelled
he
Like the
from?
country.
Okay, like the country. Okay.
Mhm.
Wow.
Not like the animal. He
Bummer.
is a 52-year-old filmmaker. He's from Houston, Texas. His father worked in advertising and public relations, and his mother was a realtor and an archaeologist. Like, okay, go off, queen.
What the
Wow.
fuck? She would dig up the land and then she would sell it, or she would have. Okay, was she a real
I'm not sure that they were related. I
archaeologist, or-
Googled her. I tried to figure out, like, if she had some kind of, like, I'm a realtor and an archaeologist page, but there's, like, she has no internet presence, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think
I
that
did try.
here's the hot.
Her name is Texas Ann Burrows, if anyone wants to.
and she gave
Give
her
it a go.
son the middle name Wales. It's-
Uh-huh.
Her name's
Um,
Texas.
I think that I don't want to. You're the fact checker, so you'll have to tell me.
Go
But
ahead.
it kind of sounds like there's this thing in like when you're a realtor that like you if you're selling land specifically, you have to have people come in, like professional archaeologists, to make sure it's not like an
Indian burial ground per se.
Indian burial ground,
Mhm.
ceremonial spot, historical, whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably be super easy if you were just like, I'm an archaeologist and a realtor, so I'm just gonna dig up some shit myself and then get this thing on the market. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
true. Maybe she scouted out land for her next house. I don't know. Wish I could tell you. She's elusive.
We're gonna catch her one of these days.
Well, he is the second of 3 boys that this unlikely couple had, but they divorced when Anderson was 8 years old.
Sad face.
His older brother Mel is a physician, and his younger brother Eric is a writer and an artist whose paintings and designs have been featured in some of his movies, such as the Royal Tenenbaums. So we love a little brother collab. When he was a kid, he made silent films on his father's Super 8 camera featuring his brothers and his friends. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Super 8, but it's pretty awesome. Nothing to do with Wes Anderson, but Super 8 cameras are cute. Yeah.
It's just neat. I bought a Super
cool.
8 after seeing that.
And then he attended a private school called St. John's School, which became the setting for one of his films called Rushmore. And then he attended the University of Texas at Austin, where he met his roommate and future collaborator, Owen Wilson. I told you we'd be back to him. Wow.
Nice.
He graduated from University of Texas in 1991 with a BA in philosophy. So
Okay.
he's an interesting guy. His very first film was a short film called Bottle Rocket that starred brothers Luke and Owen Wilson, and he ended up turning it into a full-length feature film that came out in 1996 about 3 young Texas boys with nothing to lose who plan a robbery together. And it kind of establishes his tendency to foray into the caper genre. He loves to have little capers and little heists and thieving things.
That makes so much sense now that you said that he started with making like silent movies. Like the silent movie era was full of those heists and caper sorts
That
of
is so
films.
true.
And as a person who watches his movies a lot, it really makes sense. A lot of like the exaggerated action and motion that he uses, and it just makes it so much fun.
Yeah. So his second film, which was just 2 years later, he immediately turned around production, is called Rushmore, which is set at the school that he attended, starring a very young Jason Schwartzman, Bill Murray, and a woman named Olivia Williams. And in this movie, Jason's character is infatuated with an elementary school teacher who is connected to the school. So he's got a big crush on her, and Bill Murray is kind of the professor who's like, you can't be doing that.
Thank God somebody's there saying you can't be doing that. We've seen one too many movies like The Graduate where no one's there to be like, you can't be doing that, and they absolutely do it.
So Bill Murray is in this film, and after this, he went on to star in every Anderson film that has since been made. He is a staple to Wes's work. I wouldn't you love to have lunch with them? What a pair.
He's a Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson.
Trademark it, quick. Get it.
You know, like Stan, like
Wes
to be a
Stan.
Stan.
Yeah. Oh, I stand.
Yeah,
He's a Wes Anderson.
that works, I guess.
Standard. And a standard son.
This is a comedy show,
Maybe.
folks.
It's pretty good, too.
Right, we're workshopping. That's
Good
rude.
bits. Good bits.
So then his third film comes out 3 years later. It's called The Royal Tenenbaums, and this is really when he kind of started to gain some traction. It came out in 2001. It starred Gene Hackman, Angelica Houston, and then those are the parents, and Ben Stiller, Luke Wilson, and Gwyneth Paltrow play their kids. And they're this successful, artistic family in New York who are all estranged from their father, Gene Hackman. And you really start to see his style solidify in this movie, in that his shots are symmetrical and they focus on one room where something is happening on a static, and you watch a character do something for a while. And it's also the first time you kind of see that he plays with these like limited color palettes, because it's all kind of like, it's very pastel like colors in Royal Tenenbaums. It's the first time that we see this style from him.
This is where you get that meme where you're like, oops, I forgot I was in a Wes Anderson movie, and then like the outfits change.
Yeah, and I also think this is what spurred the creation of the Instagram page Accidentally Wes Anderson,
That
which
makes
is
sense.
definitely something to check out. It's had
It's
a
got to
whole
be a
book
subreddit.
published of the works, probably. And then we go on to his fourth film, which came out 3 years later. He has a very quick turnaround. This is called The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. And this is the first Wes Anderson film that I ever saw. And it's the reason that I kind of fell in love with his work. Bill Murray is Steve Zissou, who's this kind of like Jacques Cousteau-esque documentary filmmaker who is searching for the elusive and mythical jaguar shark that killed his partner during an exploration. So they're out, on the waters, and his partner gets eaten by the shark, and it becomes his life's mission to find it.
His white whale.
Yes. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Is this a remake of Moby Dick?
The film also stars Owen Wilson as a son he finds out that he has. Cate Blanchett, who is a journalist who comes along on the exploration. Willem Dafoe, Jeff Goldblum, Angelica Houston again, and Michael Gambon. And this is kind of the first film where you see Anderson start to play around with the use of miniatures. Like they have this massive ship that they all live in that has like 20 rooms on it. And he created the ship and then would film the characters and kind of place them in so that you could see this big grand scope of all of them doing what they were doing on the ship during this exploration. And it's mesmerizing. And at one point they go on an underwater expedition and there are some miniatures of like these mythical sea creatures. Throughout the whole movie, it's hinted that like there are creatures that exist in this world that don't exist in ours. Like the jaguar shark is not a thing.
Yeah.
But
sounds reasonable enough where it maybe could be.
Right. You're like, is it though? I'm gonna have to look it up.
Wikipedia feverishly. It's gotta be real.
Jaguar shark.
Gotta watch out for another shark when I'm swimming in the ocean. Come on now.
And it also has some elements of the other like caper movies. At one point there's like a shootout in an abandoned hotel. So he stays very consistent in his style and his work. For his fifth film, it is called The Darjeeling Limited. It came out in 2007. Again, about a 3-year turnaround. Trains. Yes.
Hey, is this one about a train?
I knew that Nick would eat this shit up.
How did he know this was about a train, being that he's
Chloe
never
told
seen
me
a
it's
Wes
about a train.
Anderson film? Oh. Okay.
And that's the only thing he retained.
This is going to be the only Wes Anderson movie he fucking watches.
And you know what? That's fine. It's
Is
my
it?
least favorite, but that's none of my business. It's about a train.
How could you not love it? I know that it's a train in India.
Yes.
And the limited means it's like a upscale passenger service. So it's going
Right.
somewhere where the hoity-toity people are going to be riding on it.
Yes. So we have 3 estranged brothers who all come from a pretty well-to-do background, but they are all in a fight with each other on this tightly packed exclusive train called the Darjeeling Limited. And we see Jason Schwartzman make a return, Owen Wilson make a return, and we see the addition of Adrian Brody, who is delightful. And this script was co-written by Wes Anderson, Jason Schwartzman, and Roman Coppola.
Coppola!
Just to name drop. I'm going to be doing a lot of name dropping by the end of
Sprinkle it
this.
in,
Like a lot of name dropping. But yeah, I don't know. The Darjeeling Limited is a great movie. It's another one, it's another triumph for Wes Anderson, but personally, I think it just doesn't have the substance and the depth that some of the others do.
Not a big Coppola fan, huh?
Whatever.
I guess not. I guess in the sense that there were 3 writers, it just kind of lost a through line for me.
Owen Wilson looks like shit in this movie.
Yeah, they all beat the shit out of each other.
Good.
So there's that.
Looks great.
Brotherly love. I have 3 brothers. I know. Shit gets rough. But the Darjeeling Limited was kind of Wes Anderson's tribute, and it was heavily inspired by an Indian filmmaker named Satyajit Ray. His body of work would not be familiar to us, but he was heavily influenced by these movies that were made in like the 1940s and 50s, where, you know, they were just starting to have real dialogue and deeper plots. So this was kind of his love letter to his favorite filmmaker. Then we come up on his 6th film, which is my personal favorite. It is called Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Fantastic Beasts and Where to Fox Them.
No.
All right.
This came out in 2009, which blows my mind. He had to have been working on this while he was making all these other movies, because it is a stop motion claymation film.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely gorgeous. It features the voice talents of George Clooney as the Fantastic Mr. Fox, Meryl Streep as his wife, Owen Wilson again, Bill Murray again, Willem Dafoe again, Jason Schwartzman, Adrian Brody, Michael Gambon, and
he called in all the favors.
All his faves. And he used the talents of his brother, Eric, as a voice talent. And you see some of his painting work featured in this movie as well. It is based on a Roald Dahl short book, which
is now owned by Netflix.
Rolled down.
Roald Dahl.
Roald Dahl.
Real deal.
Roald Dahl's
for our visual learners, I have it right here. Alex purchased this book for me a couple years back. It is a delightful little yarn about a fox who doesn't fit in very well with his community because the rest of them want to try to make a living and, you know, live honestly off of this valley, and he just likes to steal and lie. And
but in a cute way.
But he's very charming, and in the movie he is married to a lovely woman, and they have a child together named Ash, who's voiced by Jason Schwartzman. And partway through the movie, his brother Eric voices Christopherson, who is their cousin who comes to stay with them. So you kind of see that interaction, and he plans this big 3-part heist to steal from the 3 nearest farmers in the valley.
And it goes great.
It is awesome.
There you go. I don't have to watch it. If it goes great, like what?
Because
no spoilers.
It goes so well that the 3 people hunt down the fucking fox, and that's the movie.
That's great.
The first farmer has like these apples. They're like special apples, which, you know, another one of Anderson's kind of like, this is a thing that could exist but doesn't in the real world. So he has these like sparkly apples, and he turns it into the most delicious cider. Apparently it tastes like liquid gold. The second farmer
is Willem Dafoe in that? Does he play the rat?
Yep.
He's the guard rat.
Spider-Man fans out there just got pretty excited.
Yes.
I know who that is.
They don't.
He's a familiar name for sure.
You don't know really who he is deep down.
But yeah, he tries to pull off these 3 heists without getting busted by his wife, and it doesn't happen. This movie was highly praised among critics, and it was nominated for Best Animated Motion Picture, although it barely made back its production budget in box office. So people loved it, didn't make any money. You know how it goes.
Claymation's expensive anyway, you know?
Yeah, classic stuff. Yeah. I can't even imagine how long they worked on it. Then, 3 years later, as he does, another film comes out, his 7th film, Moonrise Kingdom, starring Bill Murray. We see a new addition with Frances McDormand, love her. We see Edward Norton, he's new. Bruce Willis, new. Tilda Swinton, new. And Jason Schwartzman, again.
Yep. My favorite.
Moonrise Kingdom, I think, is the movie that a lot of people fell in love with Wes Anderson because of. It had a pretty widespread, like, movie theater release. And it's just funny and sweet. It's a coming-of-age comedy that's set in this fictional New England town on a tiny little isolated island where they, like, get their mail by plane, and they have to worry about storms because they have to bring in their fishing boats and, you know, stuff like that. It's very cute. It's your Midnight Mass kind of isolated island community.
Yeah.
And these two kids meet at a church pageant and fall in love and start writing letters to each other. And then they plan to run away because neither of them have good home lives. And the young boy, is a scout, like a Boy Scout, sort of their own version of Boy Scouts. And Edward Norton is his troop leader. And when he goes missing, Edward Norton and the entire troop go looking for this boy and the runaway girl. It's the news spreads fast. They all live on an island together, but only as fast as a switchboard can go, which is not very fast.
One of the things that like I think about during this time too is like this movie came out at like the peak of like hipster culture.
Yes.
Becoming a thing where it was like not just the like it's where like everyone wanted their entire lives like tinted in like sepia colors.
Right.
Yep.
And this movie completely fulfilled that.
Oh yeah. So it was like everybody who wanted to feel like a unique individual was like, oh, this movie's so quirky. I love it. But it's actually a fantastic movie.
I mean, the costumes are just precise and spot on. The setting is both like eerie and familiar and beautiful. There's a scene in the like boys' camp where it's like beautifully constructed, these like massive tree houses and like wooden bridges, and then at one point it floods and like a huge gush of water comes through the Boy Scout camp. And
yeah, and I think this movie like really also highlights like Wes Anderson's ability to like he gets his point across very much by over exaggeration.
Yeah,
like
overemphasizing his point.
Yeah, and especially in a very uncomfortable way in this movie, the awkwardness of coming of age and teenage sexuality.
Yeah,
there's a single scene in this movie that's just kind of like I don't like it. I don't like this.
It's weird.
It's weird. And then it goes away, and then it's like, all right, cool. It never gets mentioned again.
Yeah, but if you're 13, it's relatable.
Yeah. It's one of those things where like even it's uncomfortable because of how awkward and relatable it is.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And there's also this sweet budding romance between Frances McDormand and Bruce Willis, who's the town sheriff. And he kind of gets embroiled in the children going missing, has to go find them. It's a small-ish community. And this boy, his parents are both dead. That's why he's living with the scouts. They're his family now. And when he goes missing and Edward Norton's troop leader management is considered insufficient for this boy, they call in social services, played by Tilda Swinton. And she never gets a name. She is only ever just social services.
Yep.
Yeah, just the concept alone of social services, which is scary enough. The system is effed.
Yeah,
big time.
But I dearly loved this movie when it came out in theaters. And 2 years later, we are hit with another stone cold Anderson classic in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh, my favorite.
Bah.
Everybody and their mother loves the Grand Budapest Hotel. Red flags for a guy. First date, he says, "What's your favorite movie?" Then he says, "Incorrect. The only correct answers are Shawshank Redemption, fucking Pulp Fiction, or the Grand Budapest Hotel." That's a red flag. But if he says it on the second date, you're good to go.
Oh, wow.
Is that from something, or did you just make that up?
That's an Alex the original, baby.
Top of the dome, baby.
Say what? One more time. I dare you.
But yeah, 2014 was a big year for Grand Budapest Hotel. It did very well in the box office, possibly because it was starring Ralph Fiennes, who is already super famous. He's Lord Voldemort. You get it.
Aha.
And
He's also just a great actor.
Yeah.
I've recently learned.
He is fantastic.
Does he have a nose in this movie?
He does.
No, he permanently cut
normal
that
looking
shit
guy.
off for Harry Potter, dumbass.
Yeah, you could have told me anything, I believe.
Sorry.
Also, a fun little tidbit for Spider-Man fans is that Tony Revolori plays Zero in this movie, and he's Flash Gordon in the Marvel Universe. So, you know.
What?
Yeah. He was he was a little guy back then. He was.
Oh, he's the guy who's like way into D&D, right?
Is he?
Flash
Gordon?
Who are we talking about?
Were you not listening? That was for you.
Yeah, Flash. You know who Flash is.
You know
who
Flash
Flash
Gordon.
Thompson is.
Yeah.
Not
I thought it
Flash
was-
Gordon.
I thought
No,
it was
no. Flash
Gordon.
Gordon's an old sci-fi comic.
Yeah.
My
Flash
bad.
Thompson. That's who we're talking about.
Flash. Oh, you
Yeah, in the
yeah.
Marvel movies, is played by the same guy who's zero. You get it.
Tony Revolori.
Just edit this out.
Wait, in
I'm leaving
what?
it in.
Oh, in The Amazing Spider-Man?
No, he in
No, in
It's the Amazing Spot, right? Because that's
Homecoming,
in
and
Homecoming,
Far From Home,
yeah.
and No Way Home.
Oh,
That guy. The
there have been
one-
3
yeah.
different Flash Thompsons. You can
Yeah,
see
it's-
the confusion.
I mean,
But I'm
Have you
back
seen the
now.
Grand
sure, but I thought
Budapest
you had seen
Hotel?
Grand Budapest.
No,
Oh, well,
Well, that explains it.
Yeah,
well, that does explain it.
Yeah. It also has
Alex
Saoirse
Kincaid.
Ronan, her first foray into the Anderson universe.
Yep.
Jeff Goldblum again, Willem Dafoe again,
Wow.
F. Murray Abraham. We see Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Tilda Swinton, and Jason Schwartzman return. And this movie is set in the 1930s at this lavish hotel called the Grand Budapest Hotel, and it follows the adventures of Ray Fiennes' character M. Gustave, who is the concierge, and his lobby boy Zero during a murder investigation of one of his former lovers. He is known at the hotel for being a man who can please women of an advanced age who perhaps don't have a spouse anymore.
Just like Rasputin.
Indeed. And then one
Sure.
of those days, one of those old biddies kicks the bucket and he becomes part of the murder investigation because she left him some weird stuff in her will.
Yeah.
Like
Classic stuff. Like an elusive painting.
of herself?
Nope.
I don't remember what the painting is of.
It was like boy holding an apple or something.
Yeah, it was like a famous painting worth a lot of money, and everybody was like, well, why would he get it?
Yeah.
Because they were
Boy,
porking.
Yeah, like it was like the prized thing within her like collection of all things.
It is indeed a boy holding an apple.
Yeah.
We were porking, so I gave him a nice painting. Get over it.
It's none your business.
What I do with my pork friends is my business.
But in this one, I think we really see more than ever. He had been dabbling in it before, but I think this movie really drives home the idea of this limited color palette.
Yeah.
You see like a soft sky blue, a sweet like sakura peach pink, and some brown, some earth tones, and that's about it.
Oh, don't
Yeah, this
forget
is-
don't forget the deep uniform purple.
Of course, yes, a deep royal purple in this like satin uniform that the lobby boys wear.
Lobby boy. I want that costume, by the way. After I Googled it, I was like, oh, this is a Halloween costume.
It's a good costume. It would be very sweaty though.
Of course. All Halloween
imagine how they
costumes
worked
are
in it.
very sweaty.
It happens.
But this is the first Wes Anderson movie that I can think of that I'm like, oh, that's Wes Anderson. Like, when people say Wes Anderson, this is the first one that pops into my head because it's the one that, like, plays with the framing, plays with the, like, miniatures is another thing that we see in this one.
You see a little miniature hotel. A lot of the scenes have to be set in like these massive miniatures that they film from far away to make it look real, like a real
Yeah.
town.
It's pretty crazy.
Everything needs to be like very symmetrical in its framing.
I just
Yeah.
realized how much Wes Anderson movies remind me of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but absolutely it does.
Because of miniatures, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I like model trains because you get the little miniatures and then you have a little train by it. So
Part
How
of
did you loop trains back in?
it's a
How
loop,
did you
dude.
do that?
The circle.
Well, I was going to say part of the charm of Fantastic Mr. Fox is that Ash the son has a train table, and at one point you watch the train go around, and then you realize that it's actually a miniature of the valley that they're in, and it's a real train.
Mhm. It's
Pretty
really cool.
adorable.
Now I got to watch 2 movies.
Keep the trains coming.
Yeah.
The next film in his works took the longest amount of time in between release, which makes sense because it is another stop motion claymation picture.
Another stop motion claymation banger.
Yes.
Whew.
This was called Isle of Dogs. It came
Yes,
out in
yes,
2018. It didn't necessarily do as well in the box office as Grand Budapest Hotel, but I think that might be because of a language barrier issue that we run into in this movie.
Mhm.
I think it is absolutely brilliant, but it is sometimes hard for people who can't read and process auditory things at the same time. And
Hey, you're just now learning about that, huh?
I am.
From dating
And
me.
Hard.
some of this movie is spoken, it's set in a mythical town, a fake town called Megasaki in Japan. And a lot of the characters, like the young boy that we meet, only speak Japanese, but there aren't necessarily subtitles for them. They're limited. We see them if, like, the little boy's on the news at one point and there's an interpreter and she translates what he's saying, which is the interpreter's played by Frances Dorman. Ding, name check. But sometimes we just don't know what he's saying. And in this town, Megasaki, it's set in the future, and there is a dog flu that they discover that starts wiping out some of the population. So the mayor, along with this skeevy doctor, pass an ordinance to ban all dogs from the town, and they all get sent to Trash Island. So they start just shipping the dogs off in droves, the first of which being the mayor's young son, who his name is Atari, and he has a dog, Spots Kobayashi, who is like his ward. He's his translator, his guardian, because Atari's kind of sickly. And somehow in this universe, dogs can understand us. We just can't, like, communicate back. We can talk to them and they can understand it, but they can't talk back to us.
Wes
So
Anderson does what he wants.
so this dog, he knows what Atari wants and needs and thinks. And then he is, even though he didn't infect anybody, he's the first dog that's shipped off when this ordinance is passed.
It's basically shown as like an act of good faith. Like, look, I'm getting rid of my dog too. This
Right.
isn't just a you guys thing.
Yeah.
And this is based off of a World of Warcraft bug that happened years ago.
What?
It's not, but
Okay.
it's very similar.
He needs to stop spouting all these plausible facts that I believe
No,
as soon
but
as you say them.
No,
Did you guys
I know
hear
what you're
about
talking
this?
about.
Yeah, the World of Warcraft bug where there was a raid that one of the features of the raid was you could catch an illness, but the illness wasn't supposed to leave the like raid boss area. But people had summons as like pets and stuff, and the pets could also get this bug.
What?
So when they would call back their pet or like despawn their pet, and then leave the raid area, it wouldn't clear the animal of the illness. So they ended up releasing this illness into the world of World of Warcraft.
That's
And there was a
crazy.
plague that happened in World of Warcraft where there were literal bodies lining the streets of World of Warcraft, and they
No.
could not stop the illness. And they tried to get people to quarantine in the game so that the illness
What?
would go away.
Yeah.
They tried like getting people, and then some people like decided to start basically griefing other characters by getting them sick on purpose, and people's characters were dying all over the place. And then finally, World of Warcraft had to completely restart.
Yeah,
Saboteur.
they had
Game.
to shut down the servers and then make it so that way it's like as soon as you leave
Wow.
the raid, everything is cleared.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the coolest part about it is though is that it was so comparable to like
Mhm.
real life plagues.
Yep.
Is that
Mhm.
scientists
COVID, for
actually
instance.
use it as like studied it as research into like what a real life plague would how that
Yeah.
would happen. Yeah.
So like a real life pandemic, they were able to basically get a survey of what a real life pandemic would look like. And, our lives now, we know that their survey was pretty damn accurate.
Yeah.
Pretty accurate,
Unfortunately.
turns out.
And ever since then, the people who make World of Warcraft are like, it was an accident, it wasn't on purpose. But everybody's like, we know what you fucking did.
There's an epidemiologist. among
Part of
the
it's
ranks.
because it took them so long to fix it. Like it was
They
like
kept-
oh,
Embarrassingly
Leave it.
long.
They
Yeah.
kept trying to leave it to the community to fix it and basically be like, okay, here are the new rules. Don't do these things. And then everybody just did them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh,
that's kind of
man.
like Isle of Dogs.
So,
Sure.
they have something to point at, so they're like, just ship the dogs off, Well, that'll fix it.
Mm.
Just shipping the dogs off to Trash Island.
Ship off the
Um,
dogs.
So Atari's rightfully pissed that his dog got shipped off, and he just has this feeling that he's still out there. So he hijacks a plane, like a little one-person flyer plane.
This
and
actually
goes-
is based off of the Cat Island, isn't it?
There is a cat island where a bunch of cats just got abandoned because they were like killing off some other population, and they were like,
So they collected the
"Get these
cats and let
outta
them
here."
go on their own island, and now there's
Yeah.
just like a cat island.
They rule the island. It's their island now.
That's cool and also a little scary.
No, cats are cool. Anyway, sorry.
So Atari hijacks this rocket and he crash lands on Trash Island to find his dog.
Mhm.
And he meets this gang of dogs that have been going around and working together to find food and survive from other rival dog gangs. As you can imagine, it's like post-apocalyptic circumstances.
All-star cast of good boys here, by the way.
Yeah, talk about name dropping.
Mhm.
The main dog is played by Bryan Cranston. This is his first foray
way.
into the Anderson films. Yes.
You know, that one dude, Bryan Cranston.
We see a return of Edward Norton, Bill
You know,
Murray,
the one
Jeff
who was fired from
Goldblum.
being the Hulk. You know, the one who played Garfield. You know,
You know
the
the
one
one.
from the one from
Ew.
Jurassic Park. Continue.
Is he in Jurassic Park?
Jeff Goldblum?
Oh, Jeff Goldblum. I thought we were
Jeff
still talking
Goldblum?
about Bryan Cranston.
No, dude, I was doing
I
it one
wish.
by one for each actor you
Got
said.
it.
It'll make sense in post.
Some also names that I could drop are Liev Schreiber,
Don't know that
Scarlett Johansson,
You know, from Avengers.
Ken Watanabe,
Nope, pass.
Greta Gerwig, Frances
Pass.
McDormand.
Pass.
Pass.
Yoko Ono. You gonna pass on that one?
You know,
Because
the
she
one who
plays a
broke up the
significant
Beatles.
character.
It's not true.
Her and another doctor discover a cure for the dog flu, but they are silenced by government officials.
Bum, bum.
Interesting. Another parallel to something that could happen in real life.
I don't like this. This is not fun.
But it's a really beautiful film, and near the end, Atari is on a national broadcast, and he reads a haiku about his friendship with his partnership with his dog Spots, and
Aw.
it really just encompasses, everything that the movie's trying to say. It's really beautiful. I won't spoil it, but another
It's
recommend from my
beautiful.
list. So that was his 9th film in 2018. And then another subsequent 3 years later, we see his 10th and final for now release, which is called The French Dispatch. It came
We
out in
saw that.
2021.
In theaters.
Alex and I did see it in theaters.
French
Absolutely
Dispatch.
delightful.
Weren't even Stubbs members back then. We had to pay for it and everything.
And this one, I think, takes a bit of a step outside of his usual genre template, in that this is a story about a magazine called the Liberty Kansas Sun that kind of sends out these like French diplomats to go live in France and write about their experiences. And Anderson is quoted as saying this movie is a love letter to journalists. So we see 3 different stories from this French Foreign Bureau of
Is
this
it only
fictional.
3?
Mhm.
It feels like so many more.
I know, right? That's what I thought too. It's this fictional newspaper called the Liberty Kansas Evening Sun, and we watch them create their final 3 main stories for their final issue under the leadership of their editor-in-chief, Arthur Howitzer Jr., until he passes away. So we see these 3 separate storylines, and they each have kind of their own title piece. The first one being The Concrete Masterpiece, which stars Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Leah Seydoux. And it's about a man who is locked up in prison who is an inspired artist and begins painting and is commissioned by Adrian Brody, who I don't really know. I don't remember how they meet. Alex, if you can fill in those blanks, if you remember.
So, first thing I want to say is there are more than 3 technically, because I know there's at least shorter kind of articles in between, because the first thing that we see is actually a travel piece written by Owen Wilson. So there are more than 3. I think that's why I felt like there were more than 3.
That's true. There are 3 main ones, but
ones.
there are little, like, bylines and smaller articles by people like Owen Wilson, who writes about traveling through France. And
and then if I'm not incorrect, I believe that Brody is a guard at the prison who sees a piece of artwork that this prisoner paints on a wall, and then basically finds it so beautiful that he starts bringing people to see it.
He believes that he can make money off of this prisoner. He knows some art dealers, and he's going to start like flipping this stuff for profit.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, he does paint on canvases. Then the last thing that he paints
is a concrete wall.
He paints 3 concrete walls because he knows that Brody's trying to make a profit off of these, and he knows that he can't sell 3 walls from the prison. So
yeah, but he's inspired. He has this muse who is also a guard at the prison, this woman who he paints often, mostly in the nude. And
what's that face, Nick?
Well, you know,
check out our YouTube video.
Eyebrows.
Our YouTube video version of the podcast to see Nick perving it up.
I mean,
but you see, he stares at this beautiful model, and then the painting's finished, and it's one of those things where you flip it around, and you're like, where is she?
And she's
because
like,
it's an abstract.
Got him.
That is not what I look like. That's my racist French accent.
Cancelled.
The second piece is called Revisions to a Manifesto, and it is about some young French teens who are scripting a manifesto against the war, and Frances McDormand, who is also a journalist, who kind of gets embroiled in writing their story. And Frances McDormand meets kind of the leader of this faction of revolutionaries, played by Timothée Chalamet, who is
of Dune fame,
of Call Me by Your Name fame.
Nice.
And he kind of
others.
He has this way of like talking to the other teenagers to just like get them riled up and get them passionate about something, you know,
Gets her
the war. They
can
point
too,
themselves at that. And there is Frances McDormand comes to write about Timothy, and an unlikely romance buds between the two of them. And if you're not aware, Frances McDormand is in her 60s and Timothée Chalamet is in his young 20s. So that happens, and at one point she like meets his mom, and it's so weird, but you know, Frances sexually progressive, it's whatever. It's fine.
It's as fine as we'll let it be.
Yeah. So that's the second story. And the third one is called The Private Dining Room of the Police Commissioner. And I think this one kind of goes back to, you know, the caper genre. We see Jeffrey Wright, who plays Commissioner Gordon in the new Robert Pattinson Batman movies. He is the journalist in this story, playing opposite people like Matthew Almeric, Stephen Park, Bill Murray, and Owen Wilson. Or Owen Wilson he's the traveling journalist. He's not part of this. But this story, I think, is the longest of the 3 of them, or at least it felt like it to me. I don't know the run times, but he is writing about
that doesn't make it bad. It was still very good.
No, it's delightful. It just, he's writing about meeting the police commissioner and his family and having a dinner with him. But during this dinner, his son is kidnapped and taken for ransom by this like group of thieves, you know, the type that are like, we're gonna steal your son and then you're gonna have to pay to get him back.
Oh, ransom.
Yeah, ransom stuff. So the journalist goes along with the police commissioner and his entire police force as they hunt down his son.
This one's very cool in the sense that it is the most clear and prevalent in the framed narrative kind of way of writing, where it's like, yes, this is his story, but he is so clearly telling it, and that is changing the plot because his opinions are also playing a part in what they're showing. And another cool thing that he does
have a part in finding his son and the investigation of it. Because he's there, he becomes part of it.
Another cool part about this one in particular is that a majority of it's in black and white, but there are moments of color that seem a little bit sporadic until you realize that the black and white is the printed text that is in the paper, and the color is the stuff that's happening outside of what he's actually writing, which is very cool.
And then there's a small part of it that is and animated in like hand-drawn 2D animation.
Because they couldn't hit a guy with a truck.
They can't hit a guy with a car. They don't have that kind of stunt money, so
they're not. So they're just gonna fucking draw that part.
But it's incredibly charming, and kind of takes you out of it for a moment and then puts you right back in the story.
And it's important to note that the drawn part of this is in the style of like a New Yorker cover.
Yeah, it is.
So it makes
it's like a
sense.
comic drawing style. Absolutely.
It makes sense for, a newspaper.
Yeah. So that was his latest release. He does also have, Anderson has some short films under his belt, like Bottle Rocket, that was what he based his first movie on, and
I'm
a couple
so
of
sorry.
others.
Before we
What's
move
up?
on,
Yeah.
You had mentioned, I just kind of want to talk about, I want to talk about this more. I want to talk about The French Dispatch a little bit more.
Okay.
You had talked about how Wes Anderson said that it was kind of a love letter to journalists.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie also sort of plays as a metaphor, at least in my opinion, or the way that I viewed it, as the death of newspaper and print as a kind of genre of information travel.
Literally, like, kind of exemplified in the fact that their editor-in-chief dies.
And when the editor-in-chief dies, like, you could ask yourself, well, why don't they just name a new editor-in-chief? But, like, the newspaper or the French Dispatch dies with the editor. When he dies, it shuts down. So this kind of feels more of a love letter to written print, and to newspapers and newspaper publishers around the world, as that media sort of dies off with the birth of the internet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because Bill Murray plays this, like, he is tied into every single story, because the paper that they're writing is about Bill Murray, basically. Knowing that this is going to be one of the last issues. So he plays a part in almost every story. And we get to know him as this outlet of creativity and this outlet of expression where it's basically no holds barred. If you want to write what you want to write, he lets you write it. If you need a chance, he gives you a chance. Like,
he pushes his writers to be better and to try things that they wouldn't.
He is the personal figure of written print, being that it is a source of freedom in writing. And he dies at the end of it. And basically everybody is just left mourning what once was and living in the happiness that it brought. So it's a great movie from start to finish, and just from a bird's eye view, it is a beautiful, beautiful message. That's it. We can move on. Next.
Well, that currently is kind of the cap on his film career. He has some other smaller works, like a couple of short films, one of them also starring Scarlett Johansson, called Hotel Chevalier.
Of Don John fame.
You got it. You had to think about it, but you got there.
I didn't want to do Avengers.
Did anyone actually go and see Don John?
I saw it twice on Netflix, once when I was 13 and once a couple months ago.
Oh, okay.
Is it that good?
No.
Who's Don John?
It was actually that bad twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess we'll never know. He's like Don Quixote.
Nope. He's a Catholic man who masturbates and feels bad about it, so he ruins his own life, and that's what it's about.
Yep.
We love that Catholic guilt.
And that is the movie.
I gotta go.
And it's very important that it takes place in New Jersey.
I bet his chest hurts.
Okay. And his last short film is called Castello Cavalcanti, that stars Jason Schwartzman, who is like an Italian race car driver, and it's based on a real story of an Italian race car driver.
Wild.
It's been a while since I've seen that, so that's pretty much all I can say about that one. But he has some smaller projects under his belt. He's made a ton of commercials. American Express, Stella Artois, for a Sony phone called the Xperia.
Yeah, I remember that. I had one.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Wes Anderson convinced you to get it. Who's to say?
Pop
he made a
off,
product
boy.
commercial, a short film for H&M, some promotional shorts for Moonrise Kingdom, and Nick, we come full circle. He designed a carriage for the Belmont's British Pullman train, which began running on October 13th of 2021. He designed a carriage for this fancy, like, rider train, probably because of his work on Darjeeling Limited.
The Wes Anderson train.
There's also
a carriage in Britain.
A carriage.
It's the car, what?
There's also a line of wallpaper made by a company called Murals Wallpaper out of the UK that made a series based on the general aesthetics of his movies, and they are adorable.
Links. I'm gonna need links.
We will drop the links in the show
In the
notes.
show note. I was supposed to say
It's expensive wallpaper, but it'd be worth
That
it.
is a lot of extra work for Nick. You have fun with that, pal.
I'll send you the link. Don't
in
even
the
worry about
show notes.
He does have an upcoming project for fans who are looking for a new work. He wrapped filming for this in early 2021. It's called Asteroid City, and it is the largest ensemble movie he has made to date, which
More like Asteroid.
blows my mind. What?
What was that?
You haven't
Alex?
even seen it yet.
You want to
I
speak
know,
up?
but it was right there, so I took it.
You want to speak
It's
up?
Tom
probably great.
Hanks stars in this film. He has joined the Wes Anderson.
Is this
group
what he was
of-
filming in Australia when he caught COVID?
It was not filmed in
Australia.
Australia. It was filmed in Mexico.
Attaboy. All right.
Same country, right? I mean,
Yeah, totally
Hey,
the
Nick,
same.
what the hell? You say some ignorant shit sometimes.
All right,
we can
so
go
here's some more name dropping. This movie is going to star Tom Hanks, Margot Robbie,
on.
Scarlett
Hold on,
Johansson.
wait. Time out. Slow
Yeah.
down.
What's up?
Start over. Slow down.
Tom Hanks,
Tom Hanks.
Of
Apollo
Toy,
13.
of Toy Story fame.
Margot Robbie,
Of
Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street fame.
Scarlett Johansson.
The Avengers.
We need a third. No, we need a third
no,
one. Of her fame. Of her fame.
Nice.
Her.
Yes. Lost in Translation too. Adrian Brody.
Of Wes Anderson fame.
The Pianist.
Nice.
Have none of you seen The Pianist?
Of the
The pianist is
fame.
really good.
Beautiful.
Of the pianist fame.
The
Bill Murray.
Of Garfield fame and of Groundhog's Day fame.
Tilda Swinton.
Of Avengers fame.
Bryan Cranston.
Of
Bring back.
Better Call Saul fame. Probably.
Baking Bread.
Malcolm in the Middle fame.
Nice.
That's a throwback.
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff
Thor
Goldblum.
Ragnarok fame.
Yes.
True, that's my favorite too. Hope Davis.
Pass.
Yep.
Yeah, she I just googled her. Her #1 credit is called About Schmidt.
Of About Schmidt fame.
Oh,
And
Of About Shit fame.
and Jeffrey Wright.
Sure is.
Who's never wrong.
Proven. So yeah, it's going to be a very star-studded cast. It was filmed in the Spanish city of Chinchon.
Good.
Chinchon.
Nope, we have no idea how to pronounce things here. That's an ongoing bit. Every time that we mispronounce something, it's part of the ongoing bit that we do, and it's not because we're ignorant.
Nice
So
bit.
that's good.
Don't know. They built this massive diorama set there that reproduces the Monument Valley in Colorado. Why didn't they just film in the Monument Valley in Colorado? Because he loves miniatures. Don't ask questions.
I'm going to ask
Okay.
questions because they were real close.
Don't worry about it. He is also in the process of producing. You mentioned earlier that Netflix now owns all of Roald Dahl's material.
His being, mind you.
They just own
his
Roald Dahl.
soul.
They did not.
own
Okay,
Roald
hold on.
Dahl.
Let's talk about this for a second. Can we
Yeah,
break it down?
let's.
So they bought Roald Dahl's estate.
Oh,
So they pretty
So
much
everything
bought-
that he is.
They bought everything Roald Dahl ever was, is, and is going to be. With CGI technology that can bring people back from the dead, Netflix owns the right to Roald Dahl being CGI'd into anything.
Oh,
I can't-
no.
I
We gotta
can't
be
deal.
serious about this shit because that is fucking wild. And the
That's
fact
insane.
the fact that CGI is getting to the point where we can make people younger and bring people back from the dead means
Deepfakes are
that
good.
I think I have to give credit to Matt Pat from Film Theory on this one because he just did a whole film theory on the fact that Disney is slowly collecting the estates of dead celebrities so that they can bring them back in future movies, and eventually
No.
they won't have to employ actors; they can just
That's so
CGI
bad.
actors in.
I
They did it.
hate that.
They did it in Star Wars.
The only time that's like okay is if they have recently passed and they were already in the works of
Exactly.
producing.
So
the
here's
movie.
here's a wild thing is that they were about to make a new movie starring James Dean that was supposed to release like next year. James Dean was gonna star in it.
James Dean has been dead for well
Many
over
years.
60
50
years.
years. Go check out the film theory on this.
just
it's-
cast someone that looks like him.
Just
What-
wild.
What is happening?
But that's just a theory, right?
Just a theory.
Unfortunately,
No, that sounds pretty legit. But anyway, there's this Roald Dahl story called
Here's Roald Dahl, I guess. I don't know.
Anyway,
has-
here's Roald Dahl.
He has this story
Oh,
called
no.
The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar and Six More, and it is being adapted for Netflix right now with Benedict Cumberbatch, Dev Patel, Ray Fiennes, and Ben Kingsley.
Netflix is on their fucking A game. Like,
Well,
when
except
it
for the
comes to
whole, like,
yeah.
we might need ads thing.
Yeah,
Wait, what?
I
but,
forgot to bring it up.
we lost 200,000 subscribers.
It's
when we
fine. It's
expected
fine.
to
Just
gain
keep
2 million.
Don't even worry about it. Just like, maybe there's ads now.
Yeah, but also they made the Adam Project, so
I know. It was really good.
it was really good.
Sucks.
So, in summation, Wes Anderson is a very consistent director. He plays with these themes and these styles and a tendency to genre break that has kind of given him his own genre. He is considered to be a postmodern director because of his nostalgic attentions to detail and his subversion of, you know, the mainstream conventions of narrative and of genre, kind of borrowing from whatever piece of genre that he wants to. And his love for eccentric characters. You really kind of fall in love with these people and you don't forget about them. And he writes about a lot of themes that connect with people, like grief and loss of innocence and dysfunctional families and parental abandonment, adultery, sibling rivalry, unlikely friendships, and a good kooky scheme or two. Which everyone can relate to. Everybody goes through things like that. So he connects to people on a very emotional level while employing these limited color palettes and cinematography, like these flat space camera moves that make you feel like you're looking into a dollhouse where people really live. And, you know, his extensive use of miniatures, not just in his stop motion films, even incorporated into films with real people. It creates this, like, this isolated world all his own. And every movie kind of exemplifies that. And I think it's really amazing. And he has been rewarded for his efforts. He has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4,
She's currently
5,
counting.
6, 7, 8, 9, plus 11, 20 Academy Awards under his belt. The Grand
And
Budapest
he never
Hotel.
slapped anyone.
Is that a lot? I don't really know. I'm sorry.
The Grand Budapest Hotel alone winning 11 of those Academy Awards. That thing got showered, honey.
It's a good movie.
The Academy loved it, okay?
The Academy was like, and it was just like projectile Academy Awards smacking him.
And he's got plenty of BAFTAs and Golden Globes, too.
What's his bathtubs have anything to do with this?
They're probably claw-footed and green.
This is a comedy show, folks. Keep that in mind.
But yeah, that's Wes Anderson in a cute little pastel nutshell, and I hope that you...
Pastel Nutshell is a great band name.
Thank you.
Wow.
It's pretty
Sorry.
awesome. And I hope
Continue.
that you entertain the idea of watching some of his body of work.
Entertain this.
Entertainment.
Hey.
When we get back, we're back with UniComm Productions for a quick this.
Woo.
Thank you so much, Chloe, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back from that musical interlude that I had previously mentioned. We are back with Kristin Rose, aka UniComm Productions on YouTube, a creator of a Dead Mall series focused around our little neck of the woods, as well as expanding out even further in other directions, deeper into Kentucky and into Indiana and into Ohio. She'll tell you herself. But she's back for our quick this segment. She so nicely returned to do a 5-minute segment for us. But first off, thank you so much for coming back.
You're very welcome. It's an honor.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. So you have, interestingly enough, something not related to to dead malls or things like that. But you have a quick this for us this week.
I do. They said talk about any entertainment topic that interests you. So I wanted to talk about how I feel that Sofia Coppola's first 2 movies really influenced my work.
Nice. We're way into it.
So we're talking about The Virgin Suicides and Lost in Translation, which would have been her first 2 movies. The Virgin Suicides is a symphony of 70s aesthetics that are not remembered as well, because their house is colonial, mid-century colonial. It's a lot of brown, it's a lot of amber. The whole film is just awash in golden tones. And really, at its heart, it's a movie about longing, and it's a movie about loneliness, and collecting all these little artifacts to create a history. Because I guess I should probably put a spoiler alert on this part if someone hasn't seen the movie, but it's basically about a group of 5 sisters that ultimately all 5 of them end up dying as teenagers, and a group of boys who kind of knew them and kind of didn't start collecting things of theirs to piece together why this happened. So you've got greeting cards and little bottles of nail polish and lip balm and diaries and things that belong to them. And these are the sort of things that you find in a drawer if you were going through someone's house, that it's just like, oh, well, this is very evocative of a very specific time. Like it's so mid-70s. In the way that people in the Midwest experienced it versus people on the coasts experienced it, which is what we would see in movies. If you want to see the 70s in Michigan, that is The Virgin Suicides. And it's just a beautifully shot film. Air did the score, so it's just moody and dark and otherworldly, and it's so good. And I tried to evoke the intro to that movie in one of my videos, because I was just like, this feels like a 70s mall, so I'm going to do a 70s intro with the golden glow and the handwritten bubble letters and everything. And
so awesome.
Yeah. So Lost in Translation is another one that just kind of expands on that whole concept of you can feel lonely and be around people, because it follows a young woman in her early 20s who's tagged along on a business trip with her husband. She doesn't speak the language. She just basically hangs around the hotel and goes out and tries to occupy herself. And the way that these big brutalist gray structures are shot, I hope that I can make something that looks that good. And it's just a way of photographing and taking images of a very, very mundane thing to make it look really special. So you see these big gray buildings, but they're teeming with life, and she's alone and she's walking and focusing on little tiny details like a cup of water on the windowsill with the gray sky behind it. You can make something look beautiful that is so completely ordinary. And that is how it's influenced what I do. Is I'm taking something that we've seen a million times and trying my best to make it seem interesting and intriguing and evocative. And nobody does that better than she does that in Lost in Translation. It's just wonderful. It's a breathtaking movie if you've never seen it.
That's awesome. That's really great.
How much time do I have left?
You have 2 minutes.
I have some questions, though.
Okay.
So
she has some answers.
I would hope so. So when you're filming your videos and stuff, is that the kind of style that you're going for? They're very stylistic, especially in editing choices. And if so, or if not, what are the kind of choices that you do like consciously make as a filmmaker? Because that's what you're doing. You're making these documentaries. Is there like a style that you follow?
That is I would say that if there's any specific aesthetic of a film that I'm trying to evoke, it's probably Lost in Translation and a movie called The Florida Project that came out after I started making videos, but it's had a big effect on me. And other YouTubers too. I would say Jake Williams and Dan Bell were both huge influences on me, and the other people in DMOD were influences on each other. Although we very, very much diverged. We've all kind of got our individual styles now. But yeah, that is probably what I'm trying to evoke. Like Sofia Coppola does a lot of shots of light through plants. And I can walk underneath mall plants and kind of get that look because I'm only 4'10", so I can just walk underneath them.
Perfect. That's awesome. And then I had a question that you kind of sparked when you were talking about 70s in certain areas. It's a little unrelated, but I was thinking about this and I was just still curious. So there are parts of the country, I mean, life is different in so many different places than the mid, where we're from, of course. But I was wondering, do you think that there's a location in the United States where malls see more success and maybe aren't dying as much because the way of life is so different there?
I would actually say West Virginia is one of those places. I only know of 2 dead malls in the entire state, and I can think of 5 that are incredibly thriving.
Wow.
And I think a lot of it is that there's a real lack of flat land to build something like that on here. And the ones that do exist are really, really far apart. We're talking about the opposite of overmalled. If anything, West Virginia is under-retailed because we are short on places to build it. And from what I understand, our business laws are a little restrictive, that it doesn't encourage people to open things. But I mean, the Huntington Mall, it's like it's 1999 in there. It's crazy.
Awesome.
And it's because they don't have any competition. I think, too, that because you're talking about sort of remote areas where, you know, maybe your internet isn't as fast and maybe Amazon can't get something to you in 2 days, you're more apt to go buy it in person. And a lot of places, especially in like Eastern Kentucky, JCPenney closed like a bunch of strip mall stores on that side of the state. And Peebles closed all their locations, which were really the only 2 department stores that would operate in small towns. So if you live in Maysville, Kentucky, and you need to buy a suit to go to a funeral, where are you going to go? You're going to drive to Ashland, or you're going to drive to Cincinnati and go to the mall there. So they're really, really far apart from each other. So I think that probably helps. But yeah, actually, West Virginia's malls are doing surprisingly well.
So is it still like exciting when you're like, oh, I get to go to the mall? Because you're like, oh, it's going to be so lively. It's going to be an experience.
If I'm actually going to go to a mall to shop, that is where I go. And it's like, oh, I don't have to have a camera. I can actually go in all the stores and just buy stuff.
That is cool.
And
like,
dangerous.
Yes, of course. It's like when you're when you clock out of work in any retail and you're like, well, now I'm just a customer.
Yeah.
Customer's always right, huh?
That's awesome. Thank you again so much for coming back and doing our quick this for us. We do really appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind plugging yourself once more for our audience, just so they know where to find you, know where to watch your incredible content.
I make videos about empty malls that are ethereal and moody, and you might like them, you might hate them, but if you want to check them out.
We are all ethereal and moody here. That's our whole aesthetic.
You can check them out on YouTube. My channel is called UniComm Productions. That's UNICOMM. I'm also on Twitter at UniComm Vids and on Instagram, UniComm Productions.
Awesome. Thank you again for coming on. It has been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
The time has flown by.
Yeah, it has.
It's been so lovely. As always, if there's something in entertainment that you want to hear us cover, there are a couple ways you can throw suggestions at us, and you might just be invited on to do a guest spot for us. So the first and easiest way to do that is to go to our website, www.entertainthis.com/ET-podcast. Scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a questionnaire that you can fill out there. Go straight to us. Another easy way is to email us. Our email is entertainthispodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter, entertain_this. On Instagram, we are Entertain This Podcast. And on Facebook, we are Podcast Entertain This. And as always, entertain us so we can entertain you, and you can entertain this. We'll see you next Friday. Goodbye!
Bye! This episode of Entertain This was written by our showrunner and resident fact-checker, Chloe Price, with additional commentary from Michael Savoya, Nick Mustakangas, and Alex Steele. Our theme music is Rush Bubble by Aaron Spencer, with interstitial music by DJW. Tune in every Friday for new episodes, and thanks for listening.